Now, when a woman says, I did it for peace in my marriage, she's usually talking about having given up a job, a dream, a career. We teach females that in relationships, compromise is what women do. We raise girls to see each other as competitors.
Recent years have seen progress in making feminism more mainstream. Far more women describe themselves as feminists than a couple decades ago. And post-MeToo, there's at least more public scrutiny on men in power.
Those clips are just a few examples that talk about feminism and the MeToo movement. From Chipanga, Ugi, Arachi, TED Talk and The Take both talk about feminism. However, both talk about the issue in different ways. Firstly, Chimanga talks about how women give up almost everything for a marriage, while The Take talks about how women describe themselves as feminists. Today, I'll be focusing on the question on how feminist activism and MeToo movement has failed women, in particular women of colour, with two examples, South Africa and South Korea. Transnational flow is just one theory of media flow. This diagram shows this. This is particularly important for both feminist activism and MeToo movement flows, as media flows in different directions. According to Bell Hooks, feminism is a movement to end sexism, sexist exploitation and oppression. In South Africa, feminism is solely focused on the rights of girls and women, and there are two types. Firstly, the issues of feminism and gender equality. Secondly, the issues of racial equality and political freedoms. It is also often associated with liberation and depression in the country. The movement is still struggling with embedded conservative and patriarchal views in some segments of South African society. An example is Chamanda's TED Talk. She talks about her book and how someone said that she isn't a feminist.
I was promoting the novel in Nigeria. A journalist, a nice, well-meaning man, told me he wanted to advise me. And for the Nigerians here, I'm sure we're all familiar with how quick our people are to give unsolicited advice. He told me that people were saying that my novel was feminist, and his advice to me, and he was shaking his head sadly as he spoke, was that I should never call myself a feminist because feminists are women who are unhappy because they cannot find husbands.
MeToo movement was founded by Tanya Burke. It was an organisation to help survivors of sexual violence, mostly young women of colour, to find pathways of healing. Me, Not You, The Trouble with Mainstream Feminism, 2020, page 35. However, in 2017, the hashtag went viral with subsequent accusations against film producer Harvey Weinstein, as well as many other men. Prosecutor Hyun Jin-un confessed that she was sexually harassed in January 2018. This triggered the MeToo movement in South Korea. The following clip talks about her story with the MeToo movement starting in South Korea.
그 무렵 헐리우드 배우들의 미투를 보게 되었는데 저렇게 전 세계적으로 유명한 배우들도 이런 일을 당하는구나. 제가 JTBC 인터뷰를 할 때는 너무나 사실 걱정이 되고 공포스럽기까지 했었는데요. 그 이후에 많은 분들이 미투라는 이야기를 해주었을 때 그분들의 목소리가 저에게는 위드위로 느껴졌거든요. 그분들에게도 아마도 저의 미투가 위드위로 느껴졌던 것이 아닐까라고 생각하고 있습니다.
Both feminist activism and MeToo movements have been predominant in the West, but the real question is, which I reflected on today, was how the MeToo movement and feminist activism has failed women, in particular women of colour. Maybe because its main focus was on white women rather than the women of colour. Maybe their voices were silent and others were loud. Those are the two questions that have me thinking on when reflecting on how the movement has failed women. I now realise that collectively Many cultures are still affected by both and are starting to seek acceptance within their own society.